All right, Liam.
All right, we're here for episode 3 of the LeeBloom Podcast.
Welcome back at it once a motherfucking again.
I'm Liam, the Lee, with my co-host Brett, the Bloom.
Hello.
Feel the need to have a formal intro now that we have true fans out there.
Yeah, we've got a diehard fan base now. Shout outs to Riley.
Shout out to Riley.
But yeah, so you started BJJ this week?
I did 4 classes this week, Monday to Thursday. I was planning to go do 5, but my hands are shredded and I was bleeding all over the place, so...
Yeah, can confirm for some reason his top knuckles are shredded. Like the one closest to the nail.
Yeah, so I started bleeding all over the place, and I told you this earlier, but for those listening, I was rolling with this girl, and my little finger band-aids ripped off, and she just carried it to the garbage can for me, and that's when I knew I needed to...
It's fucking disturbing.
I needed to call it quits and take a few days off to let my hands heal, so here we are. I took the night off tonight. But yeah, I did 2 evening classes on Monday and Wednesday, and then 2 morning classes Tuesday, Thursday.
And so Monday, you had done the intro last week, and then you started like full on this week.
Yeah,
and just got right after it with 4 lessons. Are you sore right now?
Yeah, my throat's actually really sore.
Yeah, like your trachea basically, or is it more on the sides?
More on the sides, like right underneath my jawbone.
And is that from like stressing against chokes, do you think, or just
from getting choked, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And probably not knowing how to get choked properly, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm pretty sore everywhere, actually. But mainly in my face and my ears. And
your ears are pretty sore? That's why you've been so paranoid about the collie?
Sore, yeah.
Yeah. My one right ear has this spot like right here, and it's always sore, man. Dude, and then I went to that no-gi on Thursday for the first time.
Yeah.
And these guys all had headgear on.
What?
It's the first time I've seen. It's like these earmuffs, and then there's like a chin strap.
Oh, okay. Because I was reading, I read a shitload about cauliflower ear once my ears started to hurt. And people were saying that no-gi is way harder on the ears because it's more, like the head's one of the only places you can grab onto when you're not using a gi. So your head just gets fucking trashed when you're doing no-gi. So they said no-gi wrestlers way more commonly have cauliflower ears.
Okay.
Or no-gi jiu-jitsu guys, yeah.
Makes sense. Because you do see it in other, like, ungied grappling, like wrestlers have it really bad.
Yeah.
Like American wrestlers.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're always, I guess, operating around the head more often.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I was super paranoid about getting cauliflower ears, and as you calmed my nerves down, and others did
Talked you down off the ledge a little bit.
Yeah, but then I go to my Thursday morning class, and the guy who's like closest to me in progression, like he started a couple months ago, so he's a white belt as well. He sends a picture in the WhatsApp group afterwards of his fucking cauliflower ear that's developing.
What?
It's like, yeah.
And he's only a couple months in?
Yeah. He's got like 2 stripes.
Jesus. Really?
Yeah, it was disturbing, so I just...
Did he get it drained?
No.
What?
He was just joking about it, like, oh, like, his name's Cole. He's like, oh, I got little, like, baby Coles on my ears now.
What a sick motherfucker.
Like, wow, this is fucked up. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I'm pretty sure getting it drained is super standard, though. Like, you just...
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you could just do it at home once you got comfortable with the procedure, but...
Yeah.
I'm talking out of my ass right now. Just to comfort myself, kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to keep a close eye on him, but I don't want cauliflower ears, so I'm going to...
No, because your ear's pretty designed... It's designed to catch sound. You don't really want to fuck around with that, I don't think.
Exactly. Yeah. But interesting thing, actually, because when I started reading up on cauliflower ears, I think it was on Tuesday night.
Yeah, as you do.
Yeah, as one does. I went to my Wednesday class, and, like, it was kind of just in the back of my head all class. Mm-hmm. And that was the very worst class so far, because, like, I was like, oh, yeah, like, going into it, I was like, all right, well, no one's going to get fucking near my ears, because... I'm not getting cauliflower ears, so
no one's gonna touch these ears.
No one's getting, like, I'm just gonna have a fuck you attitude. Like, no one's touching my head, right? That's how I'll deal with this.
Right.
It's like when I was when I was in grade 7, and I couldn't go like to watch the Olympic hockey games, so I just told myself that I'd be in the Olympics one day.
Right.
So I was like, I couldn't do something, so then I just told myself a really unrealistic lie to make myself feel better about it, and that's kind of what it was like.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, just no one's gonna touch me.
That's fine. I'll just won't let them touch it.
So then I went, and I was so focused on not getting my head touched that like I just had a terrible session. Got choked out so many times. Yeah. Like shockingly painful when this girl choked me out once. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I just how important it is to actually focus on the sport, because even if you're thinking about something related to it that you think might be helping you, you're not actually thinking about the technique and the strategy anymore.
Yeah.
You're still thinking about something else that's not the sport. So it was a good lesson in focusing actually on doing the movements.
Yeah, the fundamentals.
As opposed to just like the rah, like, no one's fucking touching my head, because it just...
Elbows up.
Yeah, it just ended up way worse, and I wasn't thinking about what I was actually doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. It reminds me of downhill mountain biking, or just mountain biking in general. And it's like the classic thing you always tell newcomers is, like, when you start to get a little bit out of control on a trail, your gut instinct is to look for obstacles. But once you look, like, say, what you tell a guy is you never look at the tree you think you're going to hit. Because once you start looking at that tree, you're sure as shit going to hit the tree.
You're going to go towards it.
Right? Because your head's facing there, and then, shoulders follow the head. So it's like, when you get out of control, the proper thing is to actually let go of your brakes and just stare down the middle of the trail and just try and stay in the middle so you don't hit any trees or anything like that.
Right.
Which, I don't know, it feels like a related sports psychology piece.
That's interesting, because it's as if you are physically embodying what you're thinking. It's like if you're scared of hitting a tree, then you're gonna hit the tree. Like, you're gonna physically pull yourself towards the tree.
Yeah.
In the same way, maybe I was doing something that allowed people to get at my head when I was thinking about it so much.
Right, like you were spending more time thinking about it, and that drew other people's attention to it.
Yeah.
Or made it easier to access in some way.
Yeah, something like that. That's pretty unfalsifiable.
Yeah.
But
let's call it canon. BJJ canon.
BJJ canon. Put it in the books.
Man, so this was the first week that I did 4 rolls in a week as well, because, well, I heard you were getting after it, so I had to. And also I wanted to try the no-gi, but
yeah.
2 of the classes this week we learned this, well, on Wednesday we learned this submission. It's kind of a submission, but it's more, like, it's not actually a choke, it's just fucking painful. So mostly it's like if you're caught in half guard, you put someone in this so they let go of your one foot and you can get full mount.
Okay.
And basically it's like your picture, say I'm on my back, you get your arm, for those listeners, my arm's up by my ear, and basically you wrap tight around the armpit and the other side, and you get your shoulder under their chin, and you just, like, it's almost like traction, like you're pushing their head away from the spine.
Right.
Like with all your weight on your shoulder right here.
Right.
And we're pretty, like, I'm new, and so are most of the guys that I roll with, so we pretty much always do it on our strong side. And so for, like, probably a total of an hour and 20 this week, I just had someone, like, cranking their full body weight, like, this way on my neck.
Yeah.
And today in work, I was literally like this for the first, like, 2 hours, and, like, hunched over like Nosferatu or some shit.
Jesus, man.
It's hilarious. But it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird practicing these movements because they're so their execution has to be so specifically
yeah,
correct.
Like weight on, like, the wrong part of your leg or foot.
Yeah.
Can just blow the whole setup.
Yeah. So it's interesting because if you're, like, watching someone, like, if you're watching your teacher do a move and you know you're going to be practicing it in, like, 30 seconds, you cannot, or so far I found anyways, I thought that I could go into it looking at their body as a whole and getting kind of a full picture of the movements. But you have to be almost more analytical in the sense that you're thinking about, like, elbow tucked close to their neck, knee down on this side, like, not allowing their hips to move. And so you're like almost stepwise. It's almost like a procedure or like an algorithm you're following for a move.
I definitely feel that.
which feels weird learning.
Yeah,
Like when you're doing a sport, because you just feel like a sport, everything is supposed to come naturally.
Yeah.
To you, or like your movement's supposed to be fluid, and that's not what it is at all. So my expectations of what the sport was have been completely turned upside down so far.
Yep.
Do you find that's the case for you too?
I found the same thing, especially because when you watch something like UFC, it looks so fluid.
Mm-hmm.
I could watch whatever, but UFC is the one that I was exposed to the most probably before trying it.
Mm-hmm.
And because it looks like it's like, oh yeah, you just like hold them this way, but really it's like, and when you really get that when you're drilling, like not live drilling, for the first, like when you first move a technique, because it's like literally you'll be like, okay, drop the elbow, like you say, like it's just one like piecewise.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess it's just like reps. Once you get like years of reps on those things, then it does become that one fluid motion.
Right.
Like muscle memory, you just know. I mean, the hope is that you just know like where to be in different situations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that is the case. Like because you watch someone, like you watch a black belt do these moves,
yeah.
And there's nothing that's. It's all fluid.
It's not forced at all. Yeah.
Nothing's forced.
It doesn't look like they're thinking about it in the slightest.
It's one easy motion, yeah. And I think for a good teacher, they have to be able to recognize that a lot of their students aren't going to be able to do that. Mm. But it's quite aspirational to watch someone do that,
yeah.
and hope that you can get there one day.
Definitely. I think. Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think it's to that point. It's interesting because the teacher I have, and I'm sure it's the same for most black belts, he almost has to think about it more when he tries to break the move apart now. Mm-hmm. Where it's like he'll show the move, and you can see him. It's more laborious for him to like slow down and show each individual move than it is for him to just like whip into the right position. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of just further to that point.
Yeah, there's this. I took this Eastern Asian philosophy class when I was in my last year of school, I think, and basically we studied like a bunch of different Eastern Asian philosophies. Yeah. Confucius,
the Way,
and Mencius, and you know all those guys. There's about 10 others that I don't remember. Lao Tzu. Can't remember who it was, but one school of thought that the way to learn something was that you procedurally, they call it building cold into hot. So they call cold's like if you think about it in terms of, you're familiar with like Kahn and Tversky's work, mm-hmm. where it's like your system one, so it's your analytical side, where you're basically none of your decision making or your movement is, if you're talking about sport, let's say, none of your movement is planned. Like system one is all automatic. It just happens.
Like instinct, parasympathetic kind of thing.
Yeah, response. And then obviously system two is your system where you're executing based on a plan or based on logic, or like if you're talking about school, like you're thinking about it in terms of like working your way through a problem stepwise,
right? And
I think to follow the BJJ line is like you're learning a move stepwise. You're like thinking about, okay, now I'm putting my hand here, now I'm pulling on their wrist, now I'm turning my body this way. And so this school of thought basically said that you have to, in order to learn something, be proficient in something, you have to build cold into hot. So the cold is the system two, so you're building system two into system one. So you do those cold movements enough,
right?
And you repeat them. It basically through repetition, but intentional repetition. I hope I'm not butchering this. That you build system two into system one, so that it eventually does become automatic.
Right.
That's how, like, that's what they considered real learning, was because you weren't. It wasn't route memorization anymore,
right?
Or route repetition. It's automatic.
Yeah, you could do it independent of remembering those steps.
Right. Because it really is like an autonomic response at that point.
Yeah.
Even if I don't know a single thing about BJJ, but I think at some point there's probably a level you reach where you find yourself in a position And before even automatically doing a move, you automatically know that you need to do the move. So so it's not like you're thinking, what move should I do? You just know to do the move.
Yeah, I would imagine. Just watching like even like blue belt spar, you can almost see that coming after just a couple of years of experience.
Right.
Where it's like they'll be like hip-scaping instantly or
Right.
like trying to bump people the second they feel that weight twinge. Whereas like for me, it takes seconds to realize any of that's happening.
Right.
And I have to think like, oh, what fucking hip do I do it with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This week I literally was just in someone's guard or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just said to them, I was like, I don't know what to do.
Oh yeah, no, that I still am doing that in some cases for
I was
sure,
like,
man.
what? I was like, I don't know where to go from here. Like where, because they were looking at me like expecting me
What
to
you gonna
kind of
do now?
something because they knew I was new and they wanted to help me through it.
Yeah.
But I was literally like, I don't feel like I'm pretty fucked
I
right
think
now.
is this losing? Like,
Should I tap now, dude?
doesn't hurt, but get no more ideas.
Feels really bad though. So yeah, it's I hope that I don't get cauliflower ears because I could really enjoy seeing myself progress at this kind of thing. It'd be really fun.
Yeah, nice. Bring
If
it
I
back
get
to the cauliflower ears.
If I get cauliflower ears, I will quit immediately.
Well, but if you've got them, you've already got them, so you might as well just become a badass.
That's true. Yeah.
You gotta look. Yeah, once you look the part.
You don't want to have like.
No.
Riley, I think he'll be listening to this, and like he said in his text, like, don't fuck with a guy who has cauliflower ears.
Yeah, you also don't fuck a guy who's got cauliflower ears. So.
Soccer moms probably do, but like,
Well, yeah,
but this is all to say you don't want to be like a white belt with cauliflower ears.
no, because then you're just bad.
Because then you're just a phony.
Yeah.
And that's probably worse.
Yeah.
Than being the guy who gets his ass kicked by someone with cauliflower ears.
Absolutely. Have you? So did you manage to tap anyone out in the first week?
No.
No, it took me 2.5, 3 weeks, I think, before, and it was against like someone who was even newer than me. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. One thing I don't really understand about it, I need to look into, and I'm hoping you can tell me something about it, is like, there are very straightforward submissions that no one really does.
right.
And actually you said this in a text the other day, is like when you're rolling, and maybe this isn't the case in no gi, but with gi so far, it's like you're rolling and you're practicing getting in advantageous positions more than actually submitting someone. Because most of the time I can just grab someone's collar and pull and choke them out. But obviously we're not really training that way. So
Yeah. So it sounds like you're probably doing more technical training just off the bat. It's like, so it's like you're practicing and getting from where you're in someone's guard to passing, basically just passing guard or gaining side control, that kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean, yeah, those types of things. Like I guess what I'm saying is I think there's some people could have easily choked me out, and then like some guys showed me some really basic chokes.
Yeah.
That like you can do in almost any position sometimes.
True.
And I'm wondering why you don't, like, is it just because you're training? When in a competition, would you resort to those just in an effort to submit someone? Or
maybe just explain what, I think I could answer this better. What are the lessons at the new place been like relative, because we went together to the GB main place.
Similar structure.
So it was basically the professor would show us a technique on whoever was the highest ranked, basically, and then they'd break that down 3 or 4 times and then have us partner up and try the technique. Kind of what I would say is like a dead drilling, where you're not really giving much resistance. You're letting them put you in the positions. And then usually what we do is we take it a step further, and then the next step would be live drilling. So it's like, all right, 2-minute rounds, you're starting in a bad position, and your goal is to get out of that position or to submit from that bad position or that kind of thing. So do you guys do any of that, or have you mostly been doing the cold drilling?
We do like the dead drilling, and then we'll just roll for like...
So you'll just go straight up sparring after.
20 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, so that's usually we'll have either a really long live drill or we'll have a long cold drill and a short spar at the end.
Okay.
I would imagine they might just be... I don't know, they probably just alternate between sparring and live drilling.
Yeah.
Because I think both are super important, but... So, back to your question then. It was... Yeah, okay. So I think that the reason is probably several fold why the guys aren't just going and cross choke. Like, so a cross choke is that where you get the collars and then basically just leverage the one hand into the carotid.
Yeah.
It is easy to pull off, but it's also easy to take advantage of.
Okay.
Because basically it's you, like, you're gonna get into a bad posture if you're in someone's guard and you go for that. You're potentially in a bad posture reaching for that.
Right.
And so if you're able to get two hands onto one of their arm, you might be able to like pull them into an arm bar or easy triangle or something like that.
Right.
It also might be they know it's your first week, so they don't want to choke you out a bunch.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, because I guess what I'm getting at is like the goal is ultimately to submit someone.
It is, but it's like you say, when it's not a tournament, you almost just, the goal is really just to get better, just to learn. Like, but those live drills and the spars are good times to take big risks and like try new stuff. So I would say it's probably more just they're not being dicks to you, and like choking you out, when you clearly don't know how to defend against like the basic ones. Yeah,
that makes sense, because like I was rolling with this guy, and I could definitely tell with him, he's a great guy, and I could tell he was going lighter on me.
Yeah, which is good, honestly. He should be doing that at the beginning.
But then the professor, he's like, you just roll with him like you'd roll with anybody, and he'll learn. And then I just got choked. I proceeded to get choked out for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's also good too, though.
Like it was absolutely awful, but a good feeling at the same time.
Yeah,
but
makes the rest of the day feel better, is what I always say. It's like, well, at least I'm not getting choked the fuck out right now.
Exactly.
Even if you're getting laid into at work or something, like seeing some bullshit on the bus. It's like, well, this morning was worse.
Definitely worse. Yeah, that man could have put me to sleep.
Yeah,
5 times over.
But yeah, a good tip with the cross choke, someone who's much better than me was telling me, is if you're worried about them doing that, just hold it yourself.
Right.
Because if you take that away from them, so it's like a simple way to. What was he like in that case? What was he getting you with mostly? Like,
I was giving him my back.
Oh yeah, so he was getting like rear naked basically.
Yeah.
Damn.
And like not intentionally, I knew that was the worst possible position I could get myself into, but just about anyway.
Definitely one of the worst. Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Just like being on my back, I guess, dude.
I don't know. There's one where it's like turtle guard or something where it's you give up your back, but then you go like straight onto all fours and you like tuck everything in. And that one's like kind of tight if you can keep your elbows like in like this.
Right.
But anyway, I'm dog shit at this sport, so don't listen to a fucking word I'm saying.
It's also like on that note though, it's actually just overall kind of teaching me to be more patient with people too, because there are like when you're dead drilling, as you were talking about, like there are partners, especially in the night classes where there are more people where like you don't know them, you've never talked to them before, and like some of them aren't, let's just say some of them are less inclined to be helpful and to be in a partnership with you in learning.
Right.
And to the extent where like they're not even going to practice the moves that they just got shown, and they're going to go and try and teach you. So they see that you're a white belt with no stripes, and they're, oh, do you know this move? Let me show you this move. And you in the bottom of your heart, you want to say fuck you and
get out of here.
Like I just want to practice the move, but like at the same time, it's I would never say that to someone, especially in a place where I'm new. So it's like it's been a good exercise in patience with a couple people being like, well, I understood that like we were practicing this move over here. Could you show me that? And then hopefully they actually learn something from it too, because in my experience, those people have been the ones who like are still pretty new to it as well. So
and they might.
It's probably good for them to have a little bit of that too. Not that I have anything to teach them, but just in terms of course correction. Yeah, and
it's like that little bit of ego is going to stop them from progressing as well, which I think that kind of thing usually comes from that. It's like just getting the ego involved.
What do you mean?
Well, they think they're better than you in that case a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And they want to like, it's not virtue signaling, but it's some sort of signaling there where it's like I have a bit of experience here. Let me impart my wisdom on you. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, look, money, I'm not paying $100 a month for you to tell me this shitty move.
Yeah.
And not explain it correctly. Like, just stick to the program here.
Yeah.
That being said, I only find that annoying personally in the cold drilling. Like when I go up against like a blue belt or like a 4-stripe white belt in a spar, and then they choke me out with something and then take the time to explain how they got me into that position, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it feels very different than in the same kind of thing happening in kind of the cold drill situation.
Right. Why is that, do you think?
I don't know. I think it's just basically... maybe it's just because I was in a much more vulnerable position in the actual spar, because they actually choked me right out. And then they're like, it's more of like a, hey kid, look, like, here's how you can pull this off on someone.
Right.
And because they've actually just successfully choked me out with it, it feels like they have basically the right to tell me how it works, because they can pull it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's different. That makes total sense. And it's also different from the case of an instructor who, in our case, is he's a coral belt, like past black belt.
Yeah, where it's like
belt.
the red with like the dark red and light red.
Yeah.
And it can have up to like 20 fucking stripes on it.
Yeah, he's got that going on. I don't exactly know, but like bottom line is he's been a black belt for like 30 years.
Yeah.
He's just shown us a move and asked us to practice it.
Yeah.
And then we step away and like 5 seconds later we're practicing something completely different.
Right.
So it's like
Definitely.
there's that as well where it's like it just feels very bad.
I'm gonna go with the coral belt over here, dude.
Yeah, like I think that guy, like I said to him, I was like, I think Marcus probably was asking us to do this move, and I just kind of like gestured over like 5 feet away to where he was standing. So,
yeah, no, I basically what you're saying, there's a goal in that cold drilling, whereas sparring's more free form.
More freeform, yeah.
And so it's a better place for that kind of help.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
But yeah, next fucking sword. You see this mark on my neck too?
Yeah.
We learned. So in that, okay, I know we're probably going to stick on this for a while, but anyway, the no-gi, I didn't tell them that I was like dog shit before I started, so I think they were all blue belts and above.
Okay.
And there's, at least at the GB place, there's a few moves you're not allowed to do as a white belt or 2 white belts. And that's wrist locks and leg locks.
Okay.
And yeah.
Because you can basically break someone's leg or wrists.
I think so. Yeah. And it fucking hurts. But so I got to see those, which was super dope. Cause now I don't know how to like pull them off, but I know the mechanics behind them at least.
Yeah.
And I also found out I have incredible wrist flexibility. I'm like the least flexible guy in the world. And this dude was putting me in the wrist lock. And I was just like, is this... I'm not even trying to say, like, be tough here. I was just like, okay, this doesn't hurt. I think you're doing it wrong, dude. Like, do something different. Yeah. And then the instructor came over. He's like, yeah, you must be doing it wrong. Or this guy's just a freak. And so he puts me in it, and he's like, oh, yeah, he's just a freak.
Because he went up at 2 a.m. stretching.
No, I think it was climbing before.
Oh, really?
I think climbing was a big help, because I had that tennis elbow when I first started climbing.
Okay.
And so I always did, like, these stretches, and I've just kept doing them.
Cross-sport flexibility.
Yeah. Maybe. Anyway, can't even touch my toes though. So.
Oh well, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah. But yeah, wrist locks are dog shit. And the leg lock was heinous. Like it was the one he like tucked my foot up under his shoulder and just started cranking back like that. Yeah. And it was like, oh, this is what it feels like to lose a foot.
Yeah, those ones that really manipulate your joints like that are scary, because like it's not like a choke where you have like a second or two to feel it coming on or to be able to tolerate it.
Yeah, it's just like
as soon as your hand goes backwards or your wrist goes this way, you're like, oh fuck, like I think this guy's gonna break. Like there's an automatic response where like you'll do anything to indicate that you need him to stop.
Yeah. Like you're like tapping with your foot with your hand and yelling tap.
If your hand's like too far away to tap in time, like if the like quarter of a second from your hand touching him isn't gonna do it, then you just make a face and hope that he stops. Because it's just like a reflex. It's a total reflex. Yeah, it feels so terrible. Yeah.
I think that might be part of the reason it's just so panic-inducing. They probably just don't want people who are new doing it. And you can probably easily overdo it as well, because you're right, it's such soft joint tissue that you're manipulating.
Yeah.
And also it's not very long either. Those joints and ligaments. I don't know a thing about the human body, but
Right.
they feel short when they're getting bent that way anyway.
Yeah, it's a bad feel.
Yeah, man. But yeah, 4 days a week. I don't know if I'm going to pull off the 5 very often.
Neither am I don't think.
I think 4 is pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Also, I just don't want to do laundry that often. For $2 a load.
Is there a standard for how, like, if you're serious about it? Obviously, it depends on your experience level and these types of things. But if you're serious about it, is like 3 days the standard, 4 days the standard, 5 days the standard?
I can't really tell yet,
Yeah.
and I haven't read on that very much. But it seems like if you're a black belt, you're pretty much rolling every day.
Every single day.
Seems like it.
Jesus.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but it's like, I mean, it's like anything. Like if you get like people who are really good at anything, like
Yeah.
golfers are playing golf or hitting
Yeah.
balls every day.
Yeah.
Guys who play hockey, they're getting out at least shooting pucks every day or something, right?
Yeah.
Or 5-6 days a week.
So are you saying that people do things more as they get better at them, more frequently? They do.
Yeah, I would say that is in most cases the case, and I think it's several-fold the reasons. I'd say.
So let's say for jiu-jitsu.
Okay,
what
for
would you say
jiu-jitsu.
the reasons are?
Well, I think a big reason is that as you progress, I think that teaching is part of progressing past like brown or black belt and getting to those like coral reef belts and shit.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do have to start teaching, and I think teaching is something that's sustainable more than just like pure training.
Right.
So it's like the reason I say that a lot of those black belts are doing it every day because I think a lot of them are teaching and instructing.
Right.
And they might have a 5-day-a-week teaching schedule.
Right.
And then this is all based on anecdotes, and I've only gone to one place so far. But so like our prof says he teaches a lesson every morning, 5 days a week, and then I think he trains 3 days a week.
Okay.
Like with people at his level.
Right.
So it's like 8 rolls a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I just see lots of guys on the like Reddit subreddit, which this is probably like biased because the guys who tend to post there are the guys who are like gung ho.
Mm-hmm.
But they're posting how it's like, I'm rolling 2 days a week, like 4 days, 2 times a day, 4 times a week. Is this too much?
Shit.
So, which I think yes, that is probably too much.
Yeah. So, where my question was coming from is like, for a black belt, he obviously does it because he enjoys it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he enjoys it because he's good at it.
Yeah.
But it's not that enjoyable when you start anything for the first time. It's just not. I don't
No.
think. Like there's like you'll get things out of it, and if you reason your way through it, you'll be like, oh yeah, like I feel better during the day. I feel more alert. I like being in a structured routine, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. But like really the act of doing something, and let's just follow this example, doing BJJ like as a white belt among other like either like more experienced white belts, blue belts, purple belts, like it's not that it's like you're learning things and you're learning to focus, which is good, but none of it feels that great.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's not like, well, I don't know. I think I might disagree slightly on this, but I think the reason I disagree is just personal anecdote. I almost find that I enjoy things when I'm bad at them.
Okay.
And I don't exactly know why, but I think that my track record kind of backs that up in that I'm decent at a lot of things, but not very good at many things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like it's that, like the big learning curve I find very fun.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like usually not the actual thing that's enjoyable. It's seeing the progress that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
So I think I do agree with you.
So I guess that's what I'm saying is there a threshold at which something becomes valuable, or is it that every session where you feel as if you're learning, is that what keeps somebody going? Like, is that what sustains somebody to becoming a black belt? Or is it like they reach, let's say, a blue belt is the threshold, and all of a sudden they have this intrinsic want to go to their sessions every day and to get better because like they have observed themselves getting better? So I'm wondering, is this if you mapped it out, on a chart? Like, would it be just bad the whole way through, and then you have a like spike when you get to a certain level of expertise and you just enjoy it better because you're better at it? Or is it the value that you get out of each very small increment of progress from the very start to you go on? Does that make sense?
No, totally. And I think that my answer is both, as with most things. So I think that it's not some smooth curve that goes up and then starts skyrocketing at that blue belt point, to carry this example on. I think that you enjoy early on, maybe it's more heavily weighted. The enjoyment is seeing bigger jumps of progress, when that outweighs like the suffering or the non-enjoyment of, I don't know, getting choked the fuck out and stuff like that. But excuse me, I don't think, especially with jiu-jitsu, as you get better, I don't think any of that sort of bad or not enjoyable stuff goes away, because there's always going to be the goddamn coral belt waiting for you at the other end of the mat once you're a black belt or whatever, right? Yeah. So it's almost like I think it is a general trend up. As you get better, you do enjoy it more because you're better at it. But then I think that there's lots of noise in that like general signal. So it'll be like, got choked out for the first 3, submitted someone on my Friday lesson. And so you see it jump up there, and then it never quite goes back down as far as it did the previous week. Obviously time scales are different than this, but so I think that it's those small increments, and the key, or for people who do end up doing it long term, is those small increments never end up going back below previous small increments on the low side of that noise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
For any sustained period of time. So it's like, you might have a couple bad weeks or something.
Yeah.
But ideally that's followed up by like 2 great weeks, because you learned more in 2 bad weeks than you would have in 2 good weeks. And so you get more progression following that.
Right.
Yeah. So
So you're always, so the outcome isn't trending alongside the like underlying learning.
Right. Not necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically you just need to be an anti-fragile system to be to be a successful BJJ practitioner, I think, Liam. In that the more you get choked out and the more black swan,
the more fat-tailed risk you're taking.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But
do you have to have skin in the game?
Oh, you always got to have skin in the game,
okay,
baby.
Yeah.
Getting your neck choked out, losing consciousness, that's skin in the game, man. You need to be barbelled on that mat.
To ground the question a little more. The reason I ask is because I'm thinking about like things that people know are worthy causes to pursue for them. They might not quite know why, but they know they're worthy. Like, so for me, and I think for you, like, we know that doing jiu-jitsu is worthy because there is the intrinsic value that we've been talking about, or maybe for other reasons. But let's say, to use another example of like a writer, they know that writing is like worthy for them. It's something that they really want to do. Like, it's a creative outlet for them. But writing is absolutely horrific experience if you're trying to write something like long form. Like, it's just
I'd rather get choked out.
It's just so grueling. Like, you can write for years,
and it could all be dog shit.
It could all be bad, and you could just end up throwing it all out. So I guess the reason I'm asking is like, how do people sustain themselves when something is very important to them? They know that it's worthy for them to pursue, but they're not always seeing the outcome. The outcome isn't, as you said, necessarily aligning with the learning, because I think you can consider them, and like obviously they're different, but they're loosely analogous in the sense of like, even if you're writing really shitty for 3 years, you have to do that.
Yeah, you had to write that dog shit for 3 years to get to your magnum opus.
Yeah.
At year 3.5 or whatever.
Yeah, or at year 30 or whatever it is. So it's like, so it's the same case where you are learning, but your learning is so like, I guess you'd call it exponential in a way, with really, really small gains in the first little while that you don't really even, they're so small that maybe you don't recognize them.
Right.
And how does one keep themselves involved or keep themselves motivated? Is it just sheer grit?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because basically what you're saying is like, I hate to do this because we don't have video, but it's like your actual learning's like that. Whereas if you just look at the outcome, it's like that's the line you see.
Yeah.
So basically I just drew a linear line and then an exponential line that connect at both points. Yeah. And so basically you're asking, how do you fill that to sustain actually getting up here to the outcome? Yeah. Is it just sheer grit?
Yeah, like is it that you have to find something that you're so sure that it's your thing, it's your domain, that you continue to do it, or
I think I can only really speak to my own experience in this, and I think it's you have to find an activity that either you like so much you also like the process, or you just like the process for what it is regardless of the outcome. And then the outcome comes regardless, I think.
What was the first you said?
So the first one is that you like it so much, you like the idea of the outcome.
Okay.
So much that you're willing, that it outweighs basically the grit it would cost. Or you actually are just a sicko and you love that process, whatever it is. So like some people love training for an ultra marathon, where it's like that to other people that sounds like utter dog shit. Or writing, for example, like even if you're basically that person who wrote garbage for 29 years and then wrote like a Shakespearean work or something, right?
Yeah.
I think in that case they actually liked writing the dog shit, even though it didn't put maybe food on the table and that sort of thing. You know, they found some intrinsic value in that progress, or that dog shit, if you will.
Yeah, I think intrinsic is the word. Like you're basically saying extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. Like the guy who wants to be a millionaire doesn't really care what he does to get there.
Right.
Is the extrinsic.
And that can very much be powerful enough to get you there.
Yeah.
If it does in as many cases as the intrinsic does, there's whole fields of psychology that argue over that, right?
Yeah.
And I mean,
it just seems like the intrinsic way is so much more enjoyable.
That's exactly what I would say. It's if you like, for me, I guess it's like the old Tolkien quote. It's not the destination, it's the journey, right? And that's the part you have to enjoy. Because when you get to that outcome, you realize that, oh, right, it's that fucking 29 years I spent doing this that were actually the good time, and like where most of the value was. Even though from the outside, or even to you during that journey, it felt like the outcome held all the value.
Yeah, I mean, like, then for me the question arises, if you want to go the intrinsic route, is it the case that you have to find, is it the romantic thing where you have to find like your soulmate of things that you like to do, or can you build any passion for a process out?
I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think there's one, or like some small set of things that you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And I also don't think you can make yourself enjoy everything.
Yeah.
But I think that there is some middle ground there, some gray area, if you will. And it's like, there are like some set things, or things of some nature, or some things of set natures that are basically amenable to you.
Could you define those? Like, could you define some necessary conditions?
Yeah, well, I'll have to think about it for a second.
Because the thing that comes to mind for me is like just being good at having some kind of knack for something.
Yeah.
Or being a little bit better at something than other people are.
So I'd say that would be like, that would definitely be one of those conditions.
Yeah.
There also might be like admiration for someone who does one of those things well.
Okay.
I think you could have enough admiration for someone. Like, I never wanted to write, for example, in any regard until I read Lord of the Rings. And I was like, huh. And in this example, it actually wasn't enough. I haven't written much at all. But it was the first time that it made me think about, oh, maybe I like would enjoy writing.
Right.
So I think, well, that's a bad example because I'm not a writer now. But
no, but
you kind of see where I'm
it got you part away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got me to think about it at least.
Yeah.
But in that case, it didn't happen to be one of those, or hasn't yet happened to be one of those things where I had enough admiration, or I didn't have that admiration and I didn't have some small knack or some small edge in that field that also got me off the ground. So it's almost like there's probably some number of factors, and if you can hit like 3 out of 7 or something, you can tip the scale.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think identifying all those things would be quite something.
Yeah.
And I think it's also different for different people. So I would think that it'd be pretty valuable to think a lot about yourself and how to find those things that might lead you to activities or, works or whatever you will. Yeah, that'd be nice. Gotta think on that a little more.
Yeah.
Think about a few more of those
conditions.
Those conditions, yeah.
Yeah. I guess if we bring it back to my like original question, where it is how do you help people sustain? If we wanted to pull like a morale from this conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
Where my question my original question was how do people sustain themselves through difficult things that they know are maybe worthy for them? It might be getting there to say that it's better to, rather than setting an end goal and kind of putting the blinders on and digging into that, it might be better to I don't want to say better, it might be more enjoyable for you to do something where you're actually, not to be too romantic about it, but falling in love with the thing you're doing, or getting lost in the thing you're doing.
Right.
So that you're not so... Because for me, I feel as if when I'm looking too far ahead at like making X amount of money, or I guess that's really it. This shows where my blinders are at the moment.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit daunting, and it can actually keep you away from doing the things that you want to do, because you're not focused on the process anymore of doing it. You're focused just on the outcome. So I guess what I'm saying is that this might not be the case for everybody, but for me, and from this conversation, it seems evident that like it's probably healthier and better for people like myself, and I don't know if you agree with this, to pursue something that you can, whatever those necessary conditions are, enjoy the process enough that pushes you through, even when you don't feel like doing it, or when like you have a bunch of setbacks, or you're not receiving any external validation.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, if you're trying to make money, like if you're flat broke but you're still enjoying whatever business you're running or side hustle you're doing, then it's probably still...
It's good enough.
It's good enough.
Yeah, definitely. This might sound super cheesy, and I don't think I'm going to be able to articulate it very well, but I think that maybe a key to enjoying the process further or more. Okay, let me step back for a second. So I think a bit of the problem with your example with the money, like wanting to make a certain amount of money by a certain time, is what made me think about this. So if you think about that like exponential process that we were talking about, if you're at the bottom of that and then you're looking just at the outcome, essentially you're just going to be seeing a straight wall in front of you, right? Like if you were, bear with me here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing on an exponential curve, a positive exponential curve.
At the bottom.
At the bottom of it, looking at it straight, and it's a 2D line. So all I see at that point on a very exponential thing is basically just a straight wall.
Right.
And if you've set that outcome very high, it's a really high fucking wall.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to maybe dial your process back, and instead of thinking about your process from step 0 to the outcome, and this is by no means new wisdom, this is just...
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think any of what I've
no, anyway.
is new wisdom, but it's nice to hash through it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so if you're just to segment that process into smaller and smaller pieces and just look at that portion of the line.
Yeah.
And you don't look at the next portion until you get to the end of the portion you're working on.
Yeah.
Think about you moving up that line and your view relative to where you are in the line. Mm-hmm. So if I take a big step up that line and then I just look at the next segment, let's say, excuse me. Basically, you're never going to see a big wall if you do it like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even when you're on that steep fucking part, you're going to now be, your frame of reference is now going to be changed. If I'm standing perpendicular still, fuck gravity here. Even when I'm like right at the precipice of that exponential gain, I'm still only going to be seeing this short section of that process.
Right.
So I think that just comes down to like setting small goals and having like sub processes on the way to that outcome.
Yeah. Small steps.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, for me at least, that's always worked very well.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
That makes me think of some people talk about their lives as a video game.
Yeah.
And they're like
leveling up with certain amounts of experience and
that, and also increasing or decreasing the difficulty depending on how they're doing on a given task. So like they'll talk about the difficulties being in this optimal range where it's not too challenging where you're like paralyzed or tying it into what we were just talking about. You're not seeing any of the steps that come before it. It's not so like farsighted that you don't know what you're doing right at this moment. But it's also not so easy that you're like not engaged.
Yeah, so you're absolutely.
Or so that you are engaged and
you're not you're not like you don't have apathy for the task basically.
It's not like trivial or menial.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about operating within that kind of optimal range, and then if they're not performing at something or they're not progressing in something, it's probably an indication that they've done one of those two things. It's either too easy or too hard, and I think for a lot of people they've made it too hard on themselves, where they're like maybe they're looking too far ahead. Another way of saying that is like maybe they're biting off more than they can chew. Yeah. So if you need to, if you're starting an online, like an e-commerce business or something like that, and you're like, let's say, like maybe you want to put up like a landing page or something like that, instead of looking at the whole landing page and just kind of being paralyzed thinking about all these things that need to come together in your landing page, maybe you just like say, okay, well, I need a domain name first. Yeah. And then I need now I need to think about how to split it up even easier. But then I need to choose like a theme or a color scheme or something like that. So splitting it into smaller chunks. So I don't know if that maybe helps inform what you were saying, but that's what made me think about.
Definitely. I think, and just this is to tag that, is that almost, I like the way you're framing the progress to yourself when you think of it like that too. In that being in that optimal range, because then it's not, oh, I've fucked up and I'm insufficient in some way. It's I've set this range non-optimally. Right. And so it takes kind of the blame off of you. Right. Right. Or maybe not off of you completely. You don't lose ownership of that, but it's not like my skills are insufficient. It's that I've put myself in the wrong spot. Mm-hmm. Which is much easier to swallow, I think, than I'm insufficient. Right. Yeah. My stomach's not too small. I took way too much food. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like that. Dope. Very good. Very good. Yes. Quite. Wow. Such progress. That's classic.
I'm going to use the loo real quick.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break while Brett shares a word for our sponsors.
How was that, Lee?
That was good.
Yeah, very nice. I checked our list of sponsors and came up with Goose Egg, so...
Okay.
But we might have to try that reverse marketing scheme that the portal uses.
Reverse sponsorship?
Yeah, so, everybody go check out your local Panago. That's some of the most quality za on the market right now. And, hopefully they'll appreciate us sponsoring them and... or reading ads for them, and they'll sponsor the show.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Panago.
Panago Pizza. Come for the pizza, stay for the stock picks.
Oh boy.
What do you, did you see the new Tesla Cybertruck?
Yeah, it looks fucking awesome. Fuck everybody on the internet.
Alright, I'm glad we share the same sentiment.
Like, it looks like Porygon, the Pokemon.
Not familiar.
Oh, it just looks like basically Polygon and Steelix had a baby and then they put wheels on it.
Okay.
It's dope. Anyway, it's my
Pretty into it, yeah. I don't really care.
I mean, I'm not buying one either way, so.
Yeah, I don't care. It could have been anything, and I really wouldn't have cared. But I was a little perturbed by the response, everyone's response to it.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't really know what people think of Elon Musk, but it seems like they expect him to be a certain way now.
Yeah.
They expect him to just make a truck that's because he made a few cars that
kind of look like cars.
And they're beautifully designed, and everyone seems to really agree that they are that. But also have to recognize it wasn't any small feat to do any of the things that he's done, and he's a bit of a madman.
Yeah, so, he's one of the best specimens we've got, I think, as far as it goes.
So do you really are you really surprised that he just kind of fucking sent it on a truck and doesn't care what anyone thinks about it?
No, it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost enjoy just him not giving a fuck more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's oh, you think this is what a truck is?
Yeah.
Right here, bitches.
Yeah, even if you look at the stage setup, it was just stupid. The font in the background was just childish. And
yeah.
He was kind of just trolling everybody in the most legitimate way you could ever troll someone, in the most skin in the game possible.
Absolutely. Just his stock price hanging in the balance. But I mean, they only lost 6% today or something, so that's a win.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Stock goes, ideally your stock goes up after you introduce a new product.
Yeah, but let's compare it to the blunt on JRE. Did a lot better than that.
What happened there?
I don't know. I actually can't even pull up the numbers on that one.
Tanked.
It went down for sure, but
yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just rubbed the wrong way by people,
kind of bothered
by people who expect him to conform to whatever ideas they have. Because I don't think if he did that, we would know who he is today.
Right. Yeah, had he done that previously, right?
Yeah.
It's not how he got from PayPal to SpaceX.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's like,
and drilling holes under LA.
yeah. Like your innovators and your geniuses should be pretty abnormal, I think.
Yes.
Or else they wouldn't be that. So.
Yeah, we wouldn't have made it this far without motherfuckers like that.
Yeah.
Willing to make a hexagonal truck.
Yeah. Do you think that's like? Do you think he's one of a kind, or do you think if more people embrace that kind of attitude, we'd see more innovation?
I don't think he's one of a kind. I think he's one of the best of that kind, though.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, I think there's lots of people who probably think, well, maybe not lots, but I think there are people who think and innovate in that way, but they're also not as good as he was at doing those more, I wouldn't even say traditional, but less. He had very good timing, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, PayPal wasn't such an outrageous thing.
No. Yeah.
It made sense, whereas these are starting to make less sense, perhaps in the in conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you need to do as someone who innovates at that level.
Yeah. I should reword my question, because I'm not really a fanboy of Elon Musk. Like, I do respect him, but I'm not.
Right. You don't think he's Elon number one?
No. Like, for anyone who's kind of ultra successful, though, do you think they're of like a different breed from people who are? I have a feeling your answer is still going to be the same, but do you have a feeling that they are of a different breed, or do you think that for people who, a lot of the people that aren't like innovating in these ways or aren't kind of challenging the status quo, and as a result being really successful,
Right.
Do you think it's that they don't possess the ability, or they're just they don't have that kind of like what Eric Weinstein has described as like the right kind of disagreeableness? Like Elon Musk is disagreeable in the sense that he's willing to just put out a really strange thing that a lot of people are going to hate. But that's kind of what makes him great, is my opinion at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you think that people just, it's because people don't possess that some people don't rise to that level?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's just they don't have the kind of, is it ability, or is it just that kind of challenging the status quo and being disagreeable, is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay. Well, as with most of my answers, I'm probably the worst person to ask questions, because I'm always like, well, it's both. But I think that...
God damn it, Brett, just commit one way or the other.
I think
Give me a quote, Brett.
You need a YouTube clip?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
A jarring title.
I think that... Okay, so first of all, I think there are some people who simply don't possess that.
Yeah.
I think there definitely are.
Yeah.
For one reason or another.
Yeah.
They just can't. Unfortunately, I think that is a reality.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's a good many people who have the potential for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the people who have capitalized on that potential are people who are extremely competent, who obviously have that potential,
Mm-hmm.
also got lucky and had... I think in a lot of cases there's a lot of luck in a lot of these, like, I guess, like, uber successful folks.
Mm-hmm.
Not to take anything away from the work they put in,
yeah.
but it's like you can have, I mean, obviously you could have 1,000, 100,000 people grind just as hard as like Bezos did in his fucking like one office online book company,
Mm-hmm.
and probably only one of them is going to do what he did.
Yeah,
and it's going to depend on
right place, right time kind of thing.
Exactly. I think that plays a larger part than people want to admit.
Right.
In a lot of these.
Yeah.
And I think actually a lot of those uber successful people will be the first to admit that too.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not answering half of your question.
No, but I do want to interject on that because have you ever listened to the podcast called How I Built This?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's pretty good. You should check it out.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down.
It's called How I Built This with Guy Raz, and he's a really good interviewer. And basically he just talks to people who founded companies. It could be anything from like Tom's Shoes to like Burt's Bees or Cliff Bar.
Oh, wow. Guy Raz?
Yeah. And that's the final question he asks them at the end of every podcast is what amount of your success do you attribute to yourself and what amount do you attribute to luck?
And he asked for like hard numbers, like percentage, or
he leaves it a little open.
They elaborate.
He doesn't. Yeah, they elaborate, but most of them are pretty like. I would say everyone entertains the idea that luck is involved in some capacity, and then from there, I would say that the majority of them identify it as a huge factor.
Okay, cool.
So,
good to know. I will check out that podcast. Yeah, that sounds good.
It's a good one.
So what was the half of the question that I didn't answer? So basically you were asking, do I think everyone possesses that or not? And I said, there are some people who do not. Many people do. Many people don't have the right time, right place.
Mm-hmm. We can scrap that question because what I want to get at is like, what allows people to, if you do possess the potential, what do you need to?
Okay. Yeah.
What's the difference between a person who is not tapping into it and the person who is?
Okay. Good. Yeah. I like that wording. So I think that of the people who do have the potential, I don't think it's like a line. It's definitely a spectrum.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think it's like you might have Joe Blow who has like 1 grain of that potential, or his potential gets him 1% of the way, and he has to get lucky or work. So say he can work hard enough to get that 1% up to 10%, but then he has to get lucky on the next 90%. I think there's some fucking freaks out there who have the potential so much that they're 50% of the way, 60% of the way already, just in there. Like they're so fucking smart or so charismatic. Yeah. They just have such an edge in some way. Yeah. So it's, I by no means mean that there's like everyone's. No. It's not what is...
My question, and my question probably suggested that too, but I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Because it's definitely it's a spectrum for the whole range of people in the world, I think. Yeah.
Definitely. So you're asking, what is it that determines if you're going to go from that potential to success, basically?
Yeah, like what allows someone to tap into their potential? Damn. Is it...
If I knew, I wouldn't be sitting here, Liam. I'm just joking.
I think in you answering this, it's made me realize that it's just you have to make a more specific question.
There's just so many... I think if I'm probably just thinking about it, trying to think of too specific of examples. Like there probably are like broad stroke things that definitely increase your chances. And I think you probably touched on it in things like the big 5 personality traits. So say, like, because you mentioned disagreeableness. So maybe you might have, it might be what underlying personality traits, let's say, or let's say a mix of personality traits and IQ that underlie that potential. Perhaps there's certain combinations of those, when more heavily weighted, increase that potential much further and get you closer. So say someone's, I guess this would be a good example. Someone's like super high IQ, but terribly disagreeable and not in the right way, as you had alluded to earlier. They might seem on the surface to be very close because they're so smart, but they don't have that. They don't have like the cocktail of success, I guess. I don't know. But this doesn't really answer like what do people do outside of what they've already been given or what they have intrinsically already. I don't know. It's a good question, man.
I don't know. I think I'd have to think more about the question because I don't know if it makes a ton of sense what I'm asking.
It makes sense. I just don't have a very good answer for you is the honest answer.
Yeah.
I don't really know yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing for sure is you need to be able to put in the reps and the time. Yeah. That's the number one, I think. You could get lucky all day, every day, but if you're not going to then throw 12 hours a day at that luck, it's not going to happen for you, I don't think. So I'd say this is going to be a very general answer, but it's a pretty general question. So I think the ability and then it just begs more questions. But the ability to rise to that lucky situation or that fortuitous situation. So it's not hard to be in the right place at the right time, but it is hard to stand up when you're in the right place and the right time, is how I might say that. I think that's the best I can give you on that one right now.
No, yeah, that's a very good answer, actually. And that leads me to something I've been thinking about, which is like a lot of the smartest people I know are working in like jobs that are traditionally seen as people who are like either uneducated or they just don't pay well or something like that. Like people, despite us wanting to pretend that we're all equal nowadays. Yeah. I think anyone would be lying to themselves if they said they didn't think like one like X job was a lawyer is above
janitor,
a laborer or janitor or something like that. And so some of the smartest people I know, I feel as if people who are enthusiastic and confident in their speech and in their mannerisms have such a significant edge that it doesn't actually matter how competent they are in a lot of ways. Like, to an extent it does, but I see that I don't hold this to be true, but it seems to me that these types of people are holding these kind of positions where they're making more money, they have more responsibility, and they're able to kind of materially make more of a difference in whatever they choose to be their field of interest. So compared to some of the people I know who are absolutely brilliant, who like are having difficulty finding ways to express themselves. Yeah. So because they aren't, because they don't necessarily possess that enthusiasm or that. No, I don't even want to say enthusiasm. I just find a lot of people are a little bit fake in the way they carry themselves, but it works for them. And I think a lot of the really smart people and competent people I know that's probably what makes them competent a little bit, is that they're more honest about... Yeah, they question themselves a little more. They're more honest about their skill set. They're more humble, but it's a double-edged sword because then it... shoots them in the foot in some of those, like... I wouldn't even know what you call those situations, but, like... status gaining... I don't even know. Yeah, and it's not always status. It can... I'm just thinking about... like if you think about it on an individual level, like I don't care, like throw money and status away, but think about like how do they fulfill themselves, or pursue things that are meaningful to them without having to be somebody they're not, or like helping like how do people like that find their way in a world where people really value like those who have like the gift of the gab, or who can like fake it till they make it, or aren't as competent but have the bravado, have such bravado and confidence that they can basically trick anyone. Yeah. Because I think it's a shame that I think there's a lot of this is a fucking long question, but I think it's a shame there's a lot of people with this innate intelligence and ability, but they don't seem to have a way to like materially position that or to utilize it. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So and I'm not really asking any question, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that idea. So let me summarize what I think you're saying. So are you basically, this is just like, I'm trying to put this into one sentence. It seems easier to leverage bravado with a lack of competency in these situations than it does to leverage competence with a lack of bravado. I think we're playing dishonest games. Yes. No, I totally agree. In that, I think, well, for me, just as an aside, the further I've gotten in my short career so far, and like the further away I get from boots on the ground, the less competent I'm finding people.
And it's like the more I'm dealing with people who have more responsibility and should be useful, the less I find them so. Which, yeah, very worrying. So you're kind of wondering maybe why that's so, or what we might do about it, or how to avoid that.
I don't want to pigeonhole you into answering to any one thing, but any thoughts you have about
any of
it?
the above, yeah. Let me just think for a second. I'm just gonna grab some water. So.
Yeah. Because the perspective that I bring to this is I feel that I am an introverted person, but I also sometimes can like operate in these areas where like I can, with a very finite time limit, I can like stumble my way through a cocktail party and get out on the other side okay.
Yeah.
But I feel as if I know a little bit of what it's like to be in both kind of camps in a way. And I feel very out of place when I'm around like salespeople, for example.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, and I feel the same there, but unfortunately I also feel out of place around competent people, so I'm just kind of in neither camp.
Yeah, you're just too humble.
Just useless in general. Anyway.
Fuck up, Brett.
Oh no, dude.
I'm gonna choke you out. You stop talking like that, man.
So yeah, my thoughts. My water break didn't buy me enough time. Yeah.
And if
I don't know, fuck it. It
does that resonate with you at all?
It resonates incredibly
Yeah.
with me. And it bothers me a lot too. Yeah, I don't know what is to be done about that. But I guess it's good. It's not up to me to solve that problem.
Yeah, and
all I can really say is that I agree with it, and the longer I spend time in like I guess the working world, the more I see it.
Yeah.
And you could even see it in like in school. You noticed it, like people would take the reins on group projects or something like that, or like some committee or club you're on, and it's like they're often not the people who actually ought to be running it.
Yeah, their first idea is that you should do an icebreaker challenge to start the event off.
Yeah, something like that. It's like, okay, or we could just have a drink and chat.
Human bingo, Brett, is the only way to break the ice.
Oh yeah, love that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it would just.
One thing I've been thinking about is that I think the kind of democratization of like work is an exciting opportunity maybe for people like that.
Yes.
Like some people talk about if you can combine like multiple interests into multiple interests or multiple fields. So let's say you're like a data scientist, but you also have an interest in like urban design or something like that, and you can combine those two things where maybe you're like in the 75th percentile of data scientists and 75th percentile of like people who have a knowledge of urban design. Then now you've carved out this niche where almost nobody is good at that thing that you're good at.
Right.
Because just statistically speaking,
there's just few people.
And if you combine like three things, then it's even less likely.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm saying that like the fact that there's more opportunities to do, to create your own work.
Right.
Whether it's like putting it out online and finding a niche of people who it resonates with, or being a contractor or something like that, consultant maybe, I don't know, could potentially, I don't know, I haven't really tested this idea at all, but could be an interesting opportunity for people who are very competent to just throw the whole like system of kind of the corporate ladder or just the hierarchy of incompetence that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Throw that all to the side and ignore it and do their own thing. And by being, this is like an idea stolen from Naval Ravikant, but like by being authentic and by being yourself, you become like the best person for that role.
Right, and as you say, the more of those niches you can pull together, the more you just distinguish yourself in that space too. Yeah, that's really intriguing.
Yeah,
I think now that thank you for doing that. Now I've had a moment to think about it. I have something to contribute. I think that a lot of the problem might lie, and I think that what you've just laid out solves a lot of the problems that here, but like the gatekeepers to these positions kind of thing, or to these, or what we would hope would be competency or meritocracies.
Yeah.
Is the gatekeepers probably are a lot, like people running interviews or recruiting, because they're so easily swayed by that bravado and less so by the competence. So you could this is like solutions that I'm not qualified to be thinking about, but so maybe if you could rework those, and I think, as you say, like the democratization does actually solve that problem basically,
right?
Because you're in carving out that like triple threat niche, you're kind of foregoing the need to go through something like a job interview, where it's like you have your online portfolio and or whatever portfolio or body of works, and you're so carved into that niche that there's almost no question that you're the right person for that type of job.
Right.
And there's no need for like, well, it doesn't really matter if I have a nice conversation with this guy or girl, or if he like sits up straight in an interview and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then what I was just thinking is, it's interesting because you almost have the opposite problem in something like med school, where the gatekeepers are so far focused on the other thing, on the competencies, and maybe not the correct competencies, where, and this is partially a volume problem, but you know, they're just looking for that 98% average.
Right.
And you're potentially bringing in all these socially retarded people who don't know how to interact with a human being.
Yeah.
But they were able to ace every single example.
Right.
Or every single exam.
Right.
But they're maybe not the people you want, like, interfacing with actual patients and human beings, right?
Right.
Whereas if you were to be open to slightly lower grades and actually investing more in looking at, like, interpersonal stuff as opposed to I think it's the same problem. It's just it's kind of been switched, where in that kind of a role you do want them to be able to empathize with their patient to some degree. That actually matters. That's basically, that bravado has become one of the competencies for that role.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like it basically comes down to what you're measuring.
Right. Yeah.
In the case of med school, you're measuring a score on a test, and in the case of like most job interviews, you don't know that you're measuring anything.
It's just how much you liked them in that.
But you've been persuaded.
20 minutes. Yeah.
And so that really is your kind of diagnostic criteria. And as much as I bullshit, that is true, because there's lots of studies that show that people weigh interviews way too, like, irrationally. People weigh the in-person interview way more than they should.
Well, it's because they're involved in it, right? So they weigh it so heavily.
Yeah, but it's because of that involvement and that personal connection they've had with the person.
Yeah.
As opposed to the hard competencies that you would find on their resume or through a skills test or something like that.
Yeah, and that's why I do like what tech companies are doing with their interviews, where it's more and more weight on the actual technical aspect, where it's like, all right, you say you can do this job, here's some hard problems.
Right.
Go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously there's still some of the interpersonal stuff, because you do have to show up to an office every day and
and you have to operate within and
poo on the floor and screech at your coworkers.
Yeah.
Because nobody else does that at work, right, dude? Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I aspire to be there one day.
Yeah.
At that fully unemployable point
where
I'm
you're
doing
just
those things.
Painting your blood on the walls in the office.
That's freedom.
Yeah.